How's it going, guys and gals? My name is Beckett, and welcome back to another Beckett Reacts video. Today, we will be reacting to Star Trek. More specifically, we'll be reacting to a video called How Star Trek Changed and Why Some Fans Hate It. Before we get into the video, let me just say that, to me personally, all Trek is Star Trek. It all is. Everything from TOS right up to now. Ow. Everything, it's all Trek. That includes Enterprise. That includes all the new stuff. Now, personally, there are Treks that I'm not a fan of. I have endeavored. I have tried. I have watched, I think, probably 5, maybe 10 episodes of the original series. I personally have struggled to watch it all the way through. I could not stay engaged enough to want to carry on watching. The animated series, haven't even started it. I don't have any interest to. I don't even know where it even is. I mean, it might be on Paramount Plus, but I haven't looked. So, yeah. Everything else, pretty much, I like. But pretty much, generally, I like all of Star Trek, and I believe that everything with the name Star Trek is Star Trek. And from my experience and what I've observed, the problem is that, well, first off, you have to understand that there are people there that hate change. Change is inevitable. Things change over time, but shit does change. And especially when you have a movie, a franchise of a media franchise of any kind that spans for as long as Star Trek has, then it is inevitably going to change over time. I mean, with not only the development of better technology for filming stuff, like better cameras or better editing softwares and better film and movie production levels, but also the society and the society around us are going to change. Ideals are going to change. It's all going to, which is why the one difference between the old stuff and the new stuff is, especially when it comes to Discovery, the inclusiveness or the increase in what's the fucking way of saying it? Inclusiveness, diversity, woke culture, that sort of thing. That sort of stuff. The society and all these different. I'm gonna say labels and all these different the different identities and everyone expressing their identity and stuff these days. It's had a major impact on society these days. Major impact, and when something that has that big of a impact on society, it's gonna then be represented and shown in TV shows and films. Now, people say that old Trek didn't bother wasn't as woke as Discovery or anything is, or didn't have anything to do with woke culture. Granted, it probably wasn't as woke, but it still was woke. I mean, the only reason you say it wasn't woke is because they had to they had a show that was all about the future and being acceptant of other people's differences to you and different minorities having equal rights to everyone else. They had to find a way of showing that without the networks going, oi, you can't fucking show that, lad. That was one massive change in regards to Star Trek that which at the other time was going to and has ruffled some feathers. But and I'll say it again. I think I've said it before a second ago. But that sort of change is inevitable, especially especially with a franchise like Star Trek. If society has a if society has a shift like this, like society has today, and you have a show that's basically about the future and about society and everyone in society being accepted as a whole and being equal, it's gonna have it in there. I hope my point is made, because I've realised I've been on a massive tangent. My apologies for that. I did not intend for that to happen, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from with that. There are people that are so used to how shit was in the past, and that's what they want. They can't accept anything that's new. And admittedly, yes, maybe for you, some of the new shows might be a bit too woke for your liking. I mean, that's if that's your prerogative, that's Fine. Obviously, I'm not with obviously with that, I'm not saying like, oh, you should hate on those who want to be open with themselves. Because with myself, I'm open to anything. Like if as long as that people aren't hurting anyone, they can like identify how they like. But I know that there are some people that either most commonly through just being a part of the older generation, I find it a bit difficult to understand it all. So yeah, but because of that, they might then find out might then not quite enjoy to watch some of the newer shows because of how the people are being represented. That's just one example of a difference between new Trek and old Trek that a lot of people aren't a fan of. But yeah, I'm gonna leave that I'm gonna stop that there and leave that ramble there, and I'm gonna put in one of my earphones, and I'm gonna just watch the videos. So let's do this, shall we?
When I think about everything we've been through together, maybe it's not the destination that matters. Maybe it's the journey. I can't think of any place I'd rather be, or any people I'd rather be with.
There was a time you looked at the stars and dreamed of what might be.
I like science. That's an interesting twist.
For every Star Trek fan, each of those clips produce an emotional reaction. Some scenes create a warmth of nostalgia and a spark of joy, while others might invoke indifference, dislike, or downright loathing. Or perhaps there is something you like from each of them. The one thing that is clear is that old Trek versus new Trek is a thing. Not just pre-discovery and post-discovery either. Old Trek versus new Trek rears its head every time creators try to do something new. Sometimes it's a blip on the Trekkie radar, but at other times it's a 50-megaton nuclear bomb. The thing is, every Star Trek fan has their favorite series and movie, and in most instances, we're all different. Even here at the Popcast, we are split. Brian loves Voyager because it provided uncharted adventure in the Delta Quadrant, and I love the original series because nothing was impossible when you put Kirk and Spock together on an alien planet.
You realize that the aim will, of course, be very crude.
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Ironically, we both love Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. There's something deeply entertaining about the utopian future paying a visit to our strange, complicated, and barbaric present.
Change the music they have there.
But is the same true when you say that in reverse? What happens when you bring the complicated and barbaric present into the utopian future? Is it still entertaining? Some fans have lodged this complaint against the latest version of Trek. The reality is, the truth about why there is a battle between old Trek and new Trek goes a lot deeper than what Klingons look like or how many brothers or sisters Spock had. Are you ready for a light bulb moment? Whether you feel like new Star Trek is ruining the franchise, or you think old Trek fans are stuck in the past, you aren't going to want to miss this video. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please do so now and click the notification bell to never miss a show. Also, stay tuned until the end of the video so you can see a new Star Trek-inspired graphic design from the amazing artists at mixtees.com. When the 7th series of the Star Trek franchise was announced in November 2015, with Brian Fuller as showrunner, fans were excited and hopeful. Finally, after a decade, Star Trek was coming back to television. And since Fuller was a writer and executive producer on both Voyager and Deep Space Nine, the fandom felt like CBS was trying to create a continuity between old Trek and new Trek. The addition of Star Trek veteran director Nicholas Meyer and Rod Roddenberry, the son of Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, as executive producers to the new show, felt like everything was going in the right direction. Fuller said that working with people previously involved with Star Trek was really about making sure we maintain authenticity, music to the ears of any fan. But then came the first crack in the armor. Once fans realized the new show was being created specifically for the new CBS All Access streaming service, which would come with its own monthly fee, there were some grumblings. But at that time, most fans agreed that while they didn't want to pay more, they would for good new Star Trek. Then, 11 months later, Fuller was out. CBS put Alex Kurtzman in the driver's seat, and because the new showrunner worked with J.J. Abrams to create the new rebooted Kelvin Timeline Star Trek movies, rumors of Discovery being an extension of that universe were starting to grow. Fans soon learned that the new series would not only be another prequel to the original series, but it would be centered around a first officer instead of the captain. Enterprise had also been...
I mean, were they really sat around the captain? Like, I always was under the impression that they were just sat around the crew, because it was never focused on one. I always saw it as like, yes, the captain may be the main character, but not in the main character in like the normal sense, the common sense. I always thought of it as like they were the main character because they were the captain, but the entire main cast was the main cast because like the stories mainly formed around them.
In a prequel to the original series, and was generally considered the least favorite series among fans. The grumblings grew louder. So when Star Trek Discovery's first look trailer dropped on May 17, 2017, it was going to need to impress fans who were already skeptical of the new show. If you were to gauge the temperature of the new show by the comments in the trailer's YouTube comment section, it was apparently a cold day in hell. Everything that had been potentially bothering long-term fans up to this point came flooding out. The technology was too advanced. Not another prequel. Oh look, more lens flares. Coming soon.
Now, okay, okay, this is a lot like a major, like, you know, point, like argument I have. This is like a petty little personal argument, but I think lens flares look pretty cool. I like a bit of lens flare. Lens flares are awesome. They just give so much cinematic niceness to things. It's awesome. And can I also say, I know it's all about continuity and everything. And I think Strange New Worlds has done it quite nice. But Star Trek is all about imagining a world in the from the future. And I put it. Someone had. I'm not going to be able to find it because it's long since gone. But I remember a while ago there was a comment I saw on Facebook, or a post someone made. And they'd said that they didn't like Strange New Worlds and like the New Enterprise and everything. They didn't consider it canon because it looked more advanced than the old stuff did. And I had to sort of stop him. I had to sort of like, normally when I comment I'm not like the most logically speaking person there, but I was actually for the first time I was praised for my comment, which I was quite proud of, because I'm normally not. But and I kind of said. In summary, because I can't remember the whole thing. In summary, I said, you putting the new Star Trek into a new timeline just purely because of how more technologically advanced it looks doesn't really work, and it's kind of dumb and stupid. Because Star Trek has always been about the future, about giving us a look at what the future could look like for us, and it's always been. And with that. Not only does that include how society will look, but also technological advances. Now, back in the 60s, all the little buttons and everything else, that's how the future looked to them. But nowadays, obviously, since the invention of touch screens and everything, it makes sense to upgrade and make bridges look more futuristic to obviously make it fit with the theme of the show. Now, I know there's also the fact of continuity and canon, which I think is why Strange New Worlds has done this brilliantly, because they have they got all like the old styled technology and stuff. So they still got all the buttons on the consoles and everything, and they've also mixed it with the new stuff. But they've also mixed it with the new stuff of putting like touchscreens and everything else. So it's always a bit. I always find it funny when people say I don't consider the new prequel shows canon or part of the same timeline because they look too technologically advanced. In terms of Star Trek canon, yes, but in terms of Star Trek's ideology towards the future, no, because Star Trek's always been about looking towards the future, and nowadays touchscreens are the future and everything else. So yeah, so I just had to say that because that yeah. It was very relevant to something I previously interacted with, so yeah.
To a streaming service no one will buy. And of course, are those supposed to be Klingons? The comment section looked like the gaping hole in the side of the Titanic, but people were still screaming, "Iceberg, dead ahead." Comments aside, there were still twice as many likes as dislikes on the video. And while that isn't a good ratio, it meant more people liked it than disliked it. There were still fans unwilling to judge the new series based on the trailer, and many people wanted to wait and see what would be released on September 19th before making any judgments. But
as you should, because a trailer is only a glimpse into what a film or TV show is going to be. And I don't read books, but like they say for books, don't judge a book by its cover. Don't judge a media piece by its trailer, because there's things in the actual piece of media that won't have been shown or won't have been able to understand fully from the trailer.
For many fans, the new series was on a short rope. Then, just a month before the world premiere, Jason Isaacs was quoted in the New York Daily News as saying he didn't care if die-hard Trek fans liked the new show, and that this version of Star Trek would throw away the legacies of William Shatner and Patrick Stewart. The headline read, "New Star Trek captain doesn't care if Trekkies like him." Talk about unnecessarily swatting at a beehive over your head. Isaacs may not have cared if Trekkies liked him, but there is no doubt CBS and their future bank accounts greatly cared. The article would get a hushed face emoji from William Shatner on Twitter, and Isaacs was quick to say his comments were taken out of context and denied saying anything about the legacy of Shatner. Regardless of Isaacs' intentions, serious Trek fans of all ages were agitated and ready to punch holes in everything they saw wrong with Discovery when it launched. And boy did they. But let's get back to that in a moment. What Discovery was experiencing wasn't something new. Star Trek fans have been carrying pitchforks and torches to the gates of the newest series going all the way back to The Next Generation in 1987. It's going to be a disaster. No captain could ever replace Kirk. The Next Generation? What a lame name. The new captain is bald and old? It's hard to believe now, but 100% true. And when Star Trek Voyager was coming out in 1995, both men and women were highly critical of the fact that a woman was going to be the captain of a Federation starship. Even Deep Space Nine, essentially a spin-off of The Next Generation, received criticism for being too static. But because TNG and Voyager ran alongside the space station soap opera, fans were content to let it do its own thing. Today, Deep Space Nine is generally liked by fans. But purists who often complain that New Trek does not align with Gene Roddenberry's vision might be surprised to learn that showrunner Ira Steven Behr didn't like a flawlessly Roddenberry Life is So Good utopia. He said it all sounded like gobbledygook, and it was his idea to use Deep Space Nine to critique the Federation after being aggravated and butting heads with Roddenberry. And where do we begin with Enterprise? The theme song? That steamy scene in the shower with Tucker and T'Pol? Scott Bakula is the man, but even his presence couldn't keep Star Trek diehards from lambasting it with missed opportunities that all prequels seem to suffer from. Then there was the dreaded serialization and story arc later in the series. This method of storytelling has also been explored with Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek fans were not crazy about it. And as you will learn in a moment, this new strategy for storytelling would be a key element for a divided Star Trek fandom. The reality is that Star Trek creators face naysayers every time it recreates itself. And there was a time that old Trek was the original series, and new Trek was the Next Generation. Old Trek was also everything before Enterprise, and New Trek was Enterprise. And of course today, Old Trek is everything before Discovery, unless you're among those fans still fuming about Enterprise. But the main difference between pre-2005 Star Trek and post-Discovery is that eventually Picard won us all over. Janeway proved she was more than woman enough for the job. Sisko showed us his humanity, and well, Archer was Scott freaking Bakula.
You have no idea how much I'm restraining myself from knocking you on your ass.
And for the most part,
I like how they say Picard won us over. Jamie was showed that she could come on a starship, and then they all these like really good just like philosophical deep things, and it's just an Archer. When you go Archer, I mean, he knows it come to me. He was played by Scott Bakula, for God's sake. I mean, that's funny. I like that.
Star Trek fans eventually sat back and enjoyed the ride. But for a large part of the fandom, now going into Season 3 of Discovery, and in the first season of Picard, there is no kumbaya moment. A lack of trust in the showrunner, a sense that none of the actors or producers cared about longtime fans, and the perceived mishandling of the first season of Discovery have created a divide that many fans aren't willing to bridge.
Also, I think, I mean, I'm not one of them, but there's also the fact that on the similar lines of things never change is inevitable, especially probably with the earlier shows. Like you would have watched the show and gotten used to and got to know these characters, and then the idea of seeing them go, characters you like, and then having to watch a new show and have to work your way through to try and understand and and get to know new characters is an unpleasant thought. I know I'm not one of those people, but I know people who are like that. I've seen people who are like that.
In the same way that our world is politically divided, where battle lines have been drawn and teams are being picked, so too have fans found themselves either on the side of a vocally progressive entertainment industry or an equally vocal conservative viewer base. Concerns by fans of having overly progressive characters and storylines shoved down their throats are being met equally by other fans and creators who insist that Star Trek has always been progressive, and if you don't like it, there's the door.
It has. And I know I said it in the start, but because it's been brought up, I said it again. It has. And the reason probably the only reason you haven't noticed it is because, like I said again, at the time, back in with the old shows, they were produced at a time when, I mean, the level of wokeness or openness with and open identities people have nowadays wouldn't they're still barely accepted these days. We're getting there, but extremely slowly. With the old Trek, this sort of stuff would never have even seen, probably gotten a trailer, let alone gone on the air. So they had to try and they couldn't show too much, but what they had to try and show it without being obvious.
Fans on the side of New Trek would say that it's the purest fans who've forgotten the Gene Roddenberry golden rule. And they aren't wrong about Star Trek being progressive. Star Trek has always been liberal. There is always a lesson wrapped in the entertainment that reminded us to be inclusive, protect those who need protecting, and point it out when things are being done unfairly. But there is a difference in how today's version of Star Trek communicates those values. During the original series, Roddenberry wanted to tell stories that had social lessons in them, but he couldn't be obvious because the censors would not let the show air. So he hid the message in the
not quite word for word, but the exact same point that I've made twice already in this video. The exact same fucking point. So I don't often make these sort of points myself. So when I make a point, and then something like this says the same thing, I kind of feel proud of myself for being able to understand and say that sort of stuff. Sorry, personal little thing for me. Carry on.
Alien cultures that the Enterprise came into contact with. It wasn't humanity struggling with right and wrong. It was somewhere else, far away and inconsequential to life here on Earth. The half black and white alien and the half white and black alien may see themselves as totally different, but the crew of the Enterprise didn't see the big deal. The message was getting through, but they weren't putting a mirror up to the viewers' faces. And in this way, Roddenberry was able to address controversial topics like the Vietnam War, sexism, racism, politics, and even intercontinental missiles. The crew of the Enterprise was diverse, inclusive, and a shining example for alien races who were less socially
I was saying diverse and inclusive. That's what I was trying to say earlier.
advanced. For Star Trek fans, the message was, this is what we can be, and no matter how bad it is today, in the world or in your home, this can be the future. Roddenberry was selling hope, In the future, the acceptance of race, sex, gender, and religion could benefit all of humankind, as well as any ETs we came into contact with. And this was also the foundation the next generation was created with. Whether it was Riker falling for an androgynous alien species, or Picard overcoming cultural differences for international diplomacy by going on a long and epic journey with a Temerian captain, the examples are endless and continue throughout the rest of older Star Trek. This subtle messaging, combined with a likable and respected person leading a cohesive cast, is a critical ingredient to the secret sauce that makes Star Trek so enjoyable to many longtime fans. Fans were able to enjoy the escape of the entertainment while subconsciously absorbing a positive lesson for a forward-thinking humanity. Another key ingredient for many Star Trek fans is having a diversity of characters, one of which mirror yourself and allow you the warm and fuzzy feeling that a future utopia would include someone like you. And while Discovery was excited about embracing diversity and ensuring this inclusivity would extend to the LGBT community, the already skeptical straight white male fans of the show felt they either weren't represented, or if they were, the representation contained a message for them. Of the two men who represented them on the show, one was a converted Klingon, and the other was the bad guy of the show.
Women, stop talking.
Unintentional or not,
And I think it was just the four of us. I thought to myself, I believe this is the first time four women have sat around and decided what the future of Star Trek was with nobody else in the room.
the message received by many heterosexual white men was that there used to be a place for you in Star Trek's utopian future, but not anymore. This was likely inflamed as a result of the perceived world political landscape that some would argue had put a bad guy label on white straight males. The perceived lack of inclusivity for them would be more fuel to the growing divide in the fandom. Those changes, along with the initial changes to the canon of the show, and messing with that secret sauce of having a cohesive crew centered.
The short tracks have recently. Side note. This is a side note. The short tracks have recently come onto onto Paramount Plus, and I'm a long time. Well, I also said a long time. I've been a fan of the Fox or the animated show Archer for like a year or two now, and I was watching it and I was like, that Edward guy, he sounds very familiar. And I waited till the end credits, and it was in fact the actor who plays it wasn't H. John Benjamin who plays Archer. I was like, oh my god. I couldn't get over the fact that I was hearing Archer playing a Star Trek character. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Around one main character who embodied and upheld the ideals of Starfleet was enough to make some fans walk away from the show in frustration, anger, and apathy. And while Season 2 of Discovery and the introduction of Captain Pike, as well as filling plot holes and fixing canon, went a long way to try and repair the problems of the series, old Trek fans had already turned their backs, and the divide is still a chasm, even as Discovery marches into a third season.
Just, well, not as if it's a side rant, but just a sort of thing. Anson Mount, absolutely fucking brilliant. Amazing. And a testament to how he's amazing is the fact that I can't remember how many seasons it was, but the fact that he managed to play the leader in Marvel, the leader of the Inhumans, whose inhuman superpower was the ability to destroy things with his voice, meaning unless he was fighting, unless he absolutely had to, he could not speak. That is acting right there. Just acting with facial or body language alone.
And if that weren't enough, there may be a bigger reason fans of old Trek have problems connecting with the newer Trek series, and that is a fundamental change in how the shows are made. We referred to it earlier as serialization and story arcs. There was something familiar and appealing about self-contained stories that mostly stood on their own. The growth of the characters could be seen from episode to episode, but there was a beginning, middle, climax, and ending that was a satisfying little present each week. Over the course of a season, we were still able to see Data's drive to understand humanity, or the Doctor's endeavor to break free from the bonds of his holographic prison.
Computer, activate the ECH. Acknowledged.
But there was never a sense that if you missed an episode, you couldn't pick it up again next week without missing a beat. With serialized Star Trek, and this goes back to both Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, there was a pressure to never miss, or you take a chance of having it spoiled the next day at work, or by a family member. There is a mild anxiety to watching serialized TV shows that reminds me of your favorite dessert just being out of reach. You keep coming back each episode, hoping to enjoy it, but the dessert just gets further and further away. And with some shows, you might not get the rewarding conclusion until the end of the season, or in some cases, not even until the end of the entire series. The success of shows like Lost, Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead, and The Sopranos, among others, proved to networks and creators that you could lock people into your show each week if the show was great, but also if just a few unanswered questions are left each episode. Human curiosity rivals that of the cat, and you know what happened to the cat. No, serialized TV will likely not kill us. High blood pressure? Sure. But the bottom line is, we just have to know how something turns out, and show creators know it. Check out our video on if you binge watch Season 4 of The Expanse to learn more about this phenomenon and how it's changing the way we experience entertainment today. Don't get us wrong, serialized TV isn't the devil, but for many Star Trek fans, it just doesn't feel right. It was difficult for people to embrace the final seasons of Deep Space Nine and Enterprise. Now, Discovery and Picard are being made the same way. There is something special about tuning into your favorite shows and wondering what's going to happen tonight. Instead, we know it's a continuation of what happened last week. And if you don't love what happened last week, tuning in may feel more like an obligation than something fun and exciting to do. And you can see the backlash in this with successful shows like The Orville. Longtime Star Trek fans have flocked to the Orville's self-contained episodes that pay an homage to the old Trek style of episode delivery. The Orville also has a tight-knit crew, surrounded by a leader who embodies the ideas of their utopia. Sound familiar? This same thing happened to Stargate fans, who became upset when Stargate Universe came along and ended self-contained episodes for their franchise. And that poor fan reception is one of the number of reasons we still don't have Stargate today. The question begs to be asked, if fans have fallen in love with a formula that works, why change it? A fair answer is that creativity demands change, and in order for something to remain fresh and cutting edge, things can't always remain the same. But the truth is a bit more cynical. Self-contained episodes are harder to conceptualize and write. Everything has to fit into a 48-minute movie, and there is less time to waste from beginning to end. But in a show with a 12-episode season story arc, you have one big story, and you can stretch that story idea out as long as you can keep leaving the audience with a reason to come back each week. The reward is that as a creator, you have more flexibility, but the risk is that if you lose the viewer, it's really hard to get them back. Studios and showrunners feel that you can lock more people into committing to your show with this method. And while it's still hard to make a TV show, it's a whole lot easier to make one long movie than 12 mini-movies each season. And how often do you hear that the writing is lazy or the writing is bad? You didn't hear that about 24, Battlestar Galactica, or Mad Men, but it's a common complaint about new Star Trek, good, bad, or otherwise. The problem is that Star Trek has yet to really be successful as a serialized show. That's not how old fans enjoy ingesting it, and that is another reason for the divide. There are lots and lots of new Star Trek fans who love serialization and think old fans are crazy. Why are they making such a big deal? Get over it. It's TV. Don't take it so seriously. But you don't get labeled a diehard if you don't take it seriously, right? Will the Star Trek divide ever come back together, or will the weight of both sides pulling bring the whole franchise down? Will the re-merging of Paramount and CBS be the beginning of the healing for the fandom? Perhaps going back to self-contained episodes is the answer. Or do they stay the course and hope that the old adage, time heals all wounds, is true in science fiction as it is in life? Whether you're a fan of old Trek, new Trek, or both, why do you feel fans are always drawing lines between the two? How much of it do you think has to do with the changes in Star Trek? And do you think the current political climate has anything to do with the broken fandom? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And also check out this graphic design at mixtease.com, as well as their other Star Trek inspired designs. Get 20% off your purchase by using coupon code THEPOPCAST. The link is in the description below. Don't want this video to end? Visit us at the Popcast Live YouTube channel to learn all of the behind the scenes on this video and others. Until next time.
We're going to stumble, make mistakes, I'm sure more than a few before we find our footing. But we're going to learn from those mistakes. That's what being human is all about.
That was good. I really enjoyed watching that. And that end bit also actually taught me a thing or two, actually. I've always just I was literally, as I said at the end, that I have been for a long time that guy. There's something like, oh, what's the problem with cereal? Just if you don't like it, then what's the point? Wait, what did he actually say? Because I'm actually.
Old fans are crazy. Why are they making such a big deal? Get over it. It's TV. Don't take it so seriously.
I used to think that, but now that he's explained why the difference between the two, the fact that obviously with Serialized, it's the continuation of a story that's already been going on for the duration of the season so far. And if you don't like that story, then you don't see much point in coming back to it, which is why you may not see the point in the entire series at all. But with episodic, it's a new thing every day, so it's like, oh, what will happen next week? I get that now. Okay, right. Okay, that's. I never thought about it that way. Well, that was very good. A lot of good points made. A lot of stuff I agree with, and a lot of stuff I didn't. I learned. That was very good and very informative. I'm gonna give that a like. Yeah, okay. Good video. I enjoyed that. These guys do make some. Actually, I'm actually gonna subscribe to these guys because they make some good content. And it was I'd say it was a very thorough and detailed video about basically the issue with Star Trek these days and the divide between fans. It's very good and very informative. I enjoyed that quite a bit, and I even learned something. But yeah, so that's gonna be all for that video. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like, please leave a comment, and please consider subscribing to the channel Sergeant Beckett. Also, please consider going and giving a like on this on this video that I reacted to today, and going and subscribing to the podcast because there's a good channel over there. If you'd like, in the description there's a link to my link tree. In that link tree you can find links to places on the internet where I do other things. There's so much at this point. Gonna have a look and see what takes your fancy. So thank you all again so much for watching, and I shall see you all in the next one. Adios.